All right, welcome to episode 5 for The Heroes You Deserve. My name is Henry, and this is
Mike.
And this is
Richard.
And so this episode, we are going to discuss XMen Apocalypse. So we just watched the trailer. So first impressions, Richard, what do you think?
Olivia Munn looks really good as Psylocke.
Agreed.
Yes.
I'm like, wow. Could we see a Psylocke movie maybe?
She's
I'd like to
She's
know.
very beautiful,
I'd like
absolutely.
to know the Betsy Braddock story. I mean, I want to know exactly what's going on there.
well,
but
you know Psylocke is very convoluted history. Anyway.
well, true. Is she now British again, or is she still
Asian.
She's still Asian.
Yeah, I believe so.
It looks fun. I mean, Bryan Singer notwithstanding, he has thrown a couple of duds, but it looks interesting. I don't know how I feel about Apocalypse yet. Maybe the visuals are a little. He's a hard guy to pull off, I think.
He is. He's very shapeshifter, super strength. He can grow. I mean, he's got a lot of powers. It's kind of curious to see how they pull it off.
Yeah. But the visuals look pretty good.
He looks like a bad guy from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers.
Yeah,
I think that was a
agree.
meme.
I don't know what's going on with the whole neck thing.
Right.
I'm not feeling that, but Psylocke looked good. Did I mention that Psylocke? No, I'm just kidding.
We got it. Locked.
Archangel. We had Storm.
Yes.
We had Cyclops.
We didn't see a lot of Jubilee in this trailer, though.
We didn't see
to,
any Jubilee.
Right, in this one, though.
We saw Mystique in an actual costume.
Right.
It looks like, and which I think they've gone a little bit off the reservation with her as far as how they used her in the movies, right? But
quite a bit, yeah.
It's fine.
Sure.
It's fine. It's just Jennifer Lawrence, so you're going to use her as much as you can.
It's X-Men. I mean, X-Men comic books are already convoluted as it is.
You're right. You're absolutely right. I think this is a nice progression from Days of Future Past. I enjoyed Days of Future Past. I thought there was a lot of really cool characters that they did an awesome job with Bishop and with Blink.
Right, because First Class was 60s.
Correct.
And Days of Future Past was 70s.
70s.
And Apocalypse is going to happen in the 80s.
Oh, so that's definitely the time frame they're working in?
I believe so, yes. Especially
Yeah, we saw the young Charles Xavier with the long hair still.
and Jubilee, too, I think, just because of that whole era.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
So, Mike, are you familiar with Apocalypse? Or
I don't. I didn't historically read a lot of X-Men on account of it. The stories were very meandering.
And it's because I did not bring a lot. I've lent you a lot of my books to read.
Have.
And I've actually not brought a lot of X-Men books because it's very convoluted and so many crossovers. It didn't used to be.
It didn't used to be.
So, you might...
Yeah, when I was trying to curate some of the digital copies of the original Age of Apocalypse...
that's the wrong place to start.
Yeah, well...
Totally.
Finding the correct reading order seemed to differ from site to site even. So I was like, okay, it looked like a bear and I didn't want to wrestle with it. So I just stopped. I didn't even get going with that. I'm like, all right, somebody will explain this to me, or I'll look it up in the wiki, and I'll catch up that way.
I think Mutant Massacre, one of the first X-Men crossovers, I think was one of the best ones. But of course, just like Marvel and DC, everyone has an event in the summer. So there's been Extinction Agenda.
That's the one I think that's what I started with. I think I started with Extinction Agenda.
Yeah, that was very nice. X-Force.
Yes. X-Force wasn't there yet. It was still New Mutants.
Right.
You just reminded me. You did in fact turn me on to an X-Men property. You gave me House of M.
Yes. House of M was good.
Which was fantastic storyline.
Right. And that's why...
This was after I stopped.
Right.
Yeah, which great storyline involving the Scarlet Witch.
That got me back in. I had stopped for a couple of years, and that's where I kind of started up again.
Yeah, I would if I'm honest, would really have liked to have seen that have been made into a film. And we may yet get to see it, I hope.
But remember, there's a big crossover. House of M was kind of the after effect of the Avengers and Scarlet Witch, so they're not gonna do that.
Oh yeah, I guess there's
no more mutants. Remember, so because the Scarlet Witch kind of went crazy there for a little bit.
Oh, yeah, for a long while she went completely batshit,
Well,
and that was such a good storyline because you don't ever get to see the actual. I mean, they tell you a character. Oh yeah, if this character really lost it, we'd be in big trouble because they have control over all reality. I'm like, okay, well, I guess one day that might be a thing, but we'll just brush that aside. But no, we actually got to see what happens when a character that has complete control over reality itself goes nuts. What do? I mean, they're I guess at the end of the day, he's still human. So they do the human thing, which is try to cope. In the case of House of M, she copes in the absolute worst way possible, which is by creating her own reality in which the thing that hurt her doesn't exist.
Which is weird because, I mean, in her first earlier appearances, I mean, her powers were more bad luck probability and then kind of evolved to full-on magic and then mutant. I mean, they're still trying to retcon it a little bit.
Is she a mutant? Because in the MCU, she's not. Or is she?
She was born with magic. I think that's what makes her the mutant.
Okay.
I guess. And remember, they retconned because at first she was Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch were sons of Magneto, but they retconned it and they made them not, I believe. So, but that's comic book for you. I mean, everyone's died in the comic book universe.
When Days of Future Past, I mean, Evan Peters has that one goofy line. It's like, oh, you can manipulate metal, huh? Yeah, my mom used to date a guy who could do that.
Yes.
Right. So they're referencing that again.
Well, I think the Quicksilver in the X-Men movies is a mutant, obviously, and the Quicksilver in the Avengers movie was not.
He was. They just couldn't say the M word.
So he was not.
Well, he was altered by von Strucker.
There was no way that they ever could call him a mutant. So therefore, he was not a mutant. That's why they killed him.
Well, he was a superhuman. How about that?
He's a metahuman?
Metahuman,
that's DC.
Right.
Can't use metahuman.
Well, he was
an enhanced.
An inhuman to be.
Now, that's right, right? Marvel has the Inhumans now, which is
right.
basically a poor man's mutants.
Correct. That's exactly it. Yeah. Leading up to the Inhumans movie coming soon to a theater near you.
Black Bolt's pretty cool.
And who else? Quake?
Yeah.
Moving on.
So, Mike, so going back to you, since you're... What did you think was that the trailer had wrong? And what do you think, anything negative out of that trailer?
This harkens back to something that Richard was discussing in a previous episode where it looks like we're just sort of getting citywide destruction for citywide destruction. It's a spectacle of seeing buildings fall.
Spectacle.
Yeah. Of seeing of buildings falling for the sake of them falling because it's a popcorn muncher at the end of the day. That's what this movie is. But other things that it got wrong, I'd be hard pressed to find them at this point. I mean, I love that.
Nightcrawler's looking a little bit like Michael Jackson with that jacket.
Yeah, a little bit. The costume designs,
but it's 80s.
The costume designs are, if you're gonna have an Egyptian god come back from some sort of self-induced hibernation, you'd think that stylistically his costume and that of his followers would sort of look
Egyptian
ancient
based.
Yeah,
sure,
absolutely.
Totally. Yes.
But we got this very futuristic, stylized, super shiny, quasi-futuristic clothing.
Right. So we'll see where that comes. I mean, because they showed him kind of being
levitated, kind of engineered
right.
at some point in his past. So I don't know if he's a true... Was he born a mutant or was he made a mutant? Was he the first to ever have his genetic code manipulated by whatever device that was? And are we really okay with that having been a thing in ancient Egypt?
Right.
I think they made it seem like he was the first mutant.
Right.
I mean, that's sort of the narrative that they're trying to create.
And it's like that in the comic book as well.
Yeah, but was he tied to ancient Egypt in the comic book too?
Yes.
That much I know.
I don't get what he's worrying though, but whatever. I'm moving on with it.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong here, Henry. So from what I understand, in ancient Egypt, they were visited by an alien race that he then somehow had the power to overthrow, takes their technology, which involved body manipulation and things of that sort, and he wakes up throughout various stages in history.
Correct. He's very pro survival of the fittest, so he'll wake up out of hibernation every thousands of years and cull the people and whoever survives, and he's happy with that and content and goes back into hibernation. That's usually how he operates.
So it looks like we're seeing that take place.
Just a different Four Horsemen, though. I mean, the original. I mean, almost every X-Men kind of has been a horseman over the years. But I remember Angel and Archangel. Wolverine was Death at one point. But I remember the original four, which was Pestilence, Famine. I mean,
Death and War.
And they were nobodies. But eventually, as Apocalypse grew more popular, they converted X-Men members into members of the Apocalypse at one point or another. Are you familiar with any X-Men that was Apocalypse? Or
Just Archangel. That's the only one that I remember.
Well, that's the notable storyline because, I mean, he was regular Angel and his wings got damaged in the Mutant Massacre. He was pinned against the wall in Morlocks and his wings kind of like didn't make it, and Apocalypse kind of made him that offer saying...
Was it Apocalypse or Mr. Sinister?
I'm going to say it was Apocalypse because Angel became Death. He was the first X-Men member to become a horseman.
And the only other X-Men to have a berserker state, if I'm not mistaken, too.
Correct. Right. So, and I thought Angel in the previous X-Men movie, what was that?
First Class.
No.
He wasn't in the Days of Future Past. I don't know.
The previous
you see the X-Men 3.
Yes, X-Men 3.
Yeah, let's not talk about that.
That way. But they actually touched on superhuman registration act in there too.
Yes.
Yeah, that's actually correct. Mutant registration specifically.
Right.
But yeah, the idea of any powered individual having to register their power with the government, like you would a gun, was a overarching theme in that movie, and in mutant lore as a whole, it seems to be like that. Seems to be the
theme.
The driving theme
Sure.
is that it's mutants against the world because they're no longer they've evolved to obviously past human, and the world definitely sees them as such.
They're almost kind of like either the gays or the Jews, that they're always ostracized and people are always hunting the mutants.
Yeah, they certainly take on that archetype, like and it's probably one of the more politically driven comic properties in existence. It's run for as long as it has, considering the subject matter.
And that's probably why it's so confusing and convoluted.
Yeah, it tends to try and grab onto whatever.
It's very heavy-handed a lot of the times because, we're mutants, take it easy on us. And then there's those mutants that always like Magneto, always trying to take over humanity or Apocalypse.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be interesting to see how Magneto was always the bad in First Class and in Days of Future Past, and to see what's going to convert. How is Apocalypse going to convert him to come work for him? Because Magneto is usually the leader,
right?
And
he's always going to be a bad guy. We know that in Days of Future Past, in the future, he sees the error of his ways, and he has a nice little handshake with Picard, with Charles. But there's a lot of time. Of course.
You're not, you say that, but when James McAvoy was giving that line, I feel a great swell of pity for anyone who would be fool enough to attack this school. I heard him say it, but in my head, I'm hearing Patrick Stewart.
Mm.
And then again, immediately, I don't think Professor X. I'm thinking Earl Grey, hot.
Or just alluding to another movie, Stewart or McAvoy. Those movies are always convoluted. Deadpool line that Ryan Reynolds.
Oh, you know what? That's right. That was one of the funnier bits.
Yes.
I can't tell which one. I don't know which one. Professor X. Yeah. McAvoy or no, I mean. Like I said, from what I've seen in the trailer, it looks like an X-Men movie. Sans Wolverine, apparently.
Well, he may show up a cameo, probably, maybe.
But it's okay. It's okay to have a X-Men story without Wolverine in it.
Sure.
And I think they'll be pleasantly surprised that some of the other characters may be a bit, may get popular enough that we may not have to worry about, we can't past Hugh Jackman forever.
Well, I mean, also canonically, wouldn't he not be involved in any of this? Because at this point in his life, wouldn't he be in the Weapon X program?
There's no way of knowing where Weapon X fits into any of that.
Right.
But I mean, if they're not going to have him in the movie, I mean, I guess you could sort of write it off to that.
Because when it comes to Wolverine, he first had an appendage, or like an add-on that spikes, and then Weapon X was something different.
It was
and
bone. It was bone claws.
Yeah, and then they've had like 4 or 5 different potential origins for him.
Sure.
Have they decided which one's the real origin, or we're just kind of...
It's kind of like the Joker. They don't really want to come down.
Well, it's
with,
not quite that bad. I mean, because the Joker's, it's built into like, well, he talks. He's a liar.
It's part of it's
So
part of his character. It's part of who he
Probably
is.
all of his origins are probably at least a little true as far
well,
as the Joker's
true.
concerned.
Right, but that's based on what he's telling everyone. But the comic book reader, I think, would be.
But Logan's origins are not of his making. It's just like any time someone goes, you know what, I have a really cool origin story for Logan. Let's just do it this way.
Yeah,
And that's what it seems like.
it does seem that way.
A long time ago, back in the days when we had the comic shop, I went to convention and I talked to Chris Claremont. And I said,
And who is Chris Claremont for our viewers?
X-Men writer.
Okay.
he was the quintessential X-Men writer.
70s, 80s.
He's back, isn't he? Isn't he back to writing
Probably.
X-Men, maybe? And I asked him, do you know Wolverine's origin? He says, of course I do. And no one's ever going to know what it is.
True.
And that's true, because he did not write Weapon X. Barry Windsor Smith wrote that. That was in Marvel Comics Presents. He had nothing to do with that story, but he did write the story where Magneto ripped the adamantium off of his skeleton,
Sure.
and the bone claws remained.
Right.
So they fed off of each other. Those two stories, I think Weapon X, the Barry Windsor Smith story, and what Claremont was doing were meshed quite well. And then things just went crazy when they retold.
Origin.
Yeah, they had an origin, and then that was where everything just went out of whack. And he was like, we forgot completely that he was like a Canadian, anything with Canada, and it's just, everything just changed.
His real name's James Rowlett.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, I mean, everyone knows him as Logan. I mean,
No, he's Jimmy. He's Jimmy. His mama called him Jimmy.
all right. So, Mike, any final thoughts on the X-Men Apocalypse?
I really enjoyed the trailer as a whole. I'm, left wanting more. I'm excited that it's coming. I hate that it's still a couple months away. I have so many questions. So it did a good job. Anyway, it didn't give away too much,
Right.
but it definitely got me intrigued. So as did what a trailer's supposed to do.
Right. Excited for X-Men.
Yeah, looks good. I'm excited about it. I think from the trailer perspective, it looks as good as Days of Future Past, which is good. Days of Future Past was a good movie, so hopefully things will continue.
Yeah, and maybe. So, is that going to end the trilogy, or is it going to start a new trilogy? Especially now that they're going to move on to a different decade, like the '90s, perhaps.
Well, they've recast a lot of the mainstays with younger actors. Jean Grey, Scott Summers. I don't know if Jubilee's going to stay,
Right.
but she very well could. Psylocke could very well stay. I think this is going to be the last movie with Mystique.
Probably Jennifer
I
Lawrence.
wouldn't be surprised if she dies, or something along those lines.
Sure.
I think Beast is still probably can stick around.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're going to do with Archangel. So they could still go. I
Sure.
think.
You
I don't
can
know
leave it
that
open
this.
for a sequel.
I'm cool with seeing more X-Men movies. I think that I think Fox has a pretty good handle on them, and I think the cast is
as
good.
long as it's not handled by Marvel, though. I think.
I just Marvel has their hands full.
Right. Yeah.
See,
And
I could get behind like a full-on new school X-Men, just X-Men standalone X-Men trilogy without any, you don't need any postscripts on it. Just this is just going to be X-Men with a whole new cast.
Yeah.
With, we have James McAvoy and he's bald and that's Professor X and this is.
We have a new Storm also.
Yeah,
They've
I'm
cast-
perfectly okay with all of
I
that.
think they have an excess of stories to handle. Wait, excess.
Yeah, let's all drink to that.
That's right. And so that wraps up episode 5. So feel free to like or subscribe. And Mike, where can we reach out to you?
As always, I'm at Mikey Leal on Twitter, and I'm minding the THYD show Twitter page as well. So if you have any questions or you want to engage us in any way, comment below. Visit us on Facebook, as Henry said, and of course, visit the Twitter site. You'll see me retweeting all kinds of fun stuff, and of course, commenting on things that we find interesting.
Sure, Rich, where can we get a hold of you?
I'm on Twitter at Dickie_V.
Right here.
That's what I meant to say.
That's right. And so feel free to comment if you have any possible topics that you think we should address. Feel free to comment below. We can send us any constructive criticism, comments, suggestions, or whatever. We'll get back to you. We are all admin of the THYD Show Facebook. So we're constantly posting stuff on there as well. So you'll have many methods to reaching out to us, and we will get back to you. So thank you very much for joining us, and see you next time.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Shut up, Wesley.